We tried to be a normal talk show once. Worst 2 minutes of our lives. The Kate Daly Show starts now.
Is going to be a big problem. They're not coming after us with guns because they know we shoot them. They're coming after us with needles to kill us. And they're using electromagnetic radiation to do this silently so that we have no earthly idea what's really going on. They can use light frequencies to destroy the leptin melanocortin pathways in the brain to control people. They are using an angle of attack that none of you are prepared for. Not.
Boy, that's interesting. We're going to get Dr. Judy Mikovitz's take on that. And there's actually a bigger clip that I'll play so I can get her take. I'm so interested to do that today. But happy Thursday to all of you. And of course, a special Thursday edition just for Judy Mikovitz, Dr. Judy Mikovitz, and Dr. Kirk Moore. That's going to be following her. And his case was dismissed in Utah by Pam Bondi. And we're going to be talking to him after. So Dr. Judy Mikovitz, I've had her in studio. It was always really, really interesting and fun to have her in studio. I really admire her a lot. She came to my area to speak, and it was a big deal. Man, it was a packed auditorium, let me just say, because she was one of the most fearless and one of the first to say, this is what's going on. Fearless medical researcher, worked alongside Anthony Fauci in her early career, has become a national. What? Am I getting it wrong?
Yeah, I'd never worked with Anthony Fauci.
Oh,
I'm National
okay.
Cancer Institute. I'm kidding, but I'm not angered. But this is the thing. That was the big lie. So when you do that,
interesting.
When you do that and you say,
gotcha.
In 1983 in the summer when Anthony Fauci was attempting his first gain of function experiment, which he actually succeeded. It's called HIV, and it never was LAV, which Luc Montagnier isolated. Doesn't matter, the lymphadenopathy virus. So the whole thing of COVID-19, of course, it's 4 decades of HIV/AIDS, and that's what they know. So and HIV was injected in every hepatitis B vaccine. And that's where the ACIP is going now. That's why they're so upset right now, is because we caught Tony Fauci. I was always National Cancer Institute. June 10th,
that's right.
1980 until May 11th, 2001, when Mrs. Judy Nolde and Professor Judy Nolde left May 11th, 2001 was my last day at the NCI at Fort Detrick in Frederick, Maryland. Wow. Well, the NIAID has never been located in Fort Detrick. That was always in Bethesda, and it's 50 miles away. So I've seen Tony Fauci 3 times in my life, and I think every time I told him to do what was anatomically impossible.
This whole time I've actually thought that you did work alongside him. That's so funny. And then also it's in a bio. Yeah. I'm with you. Glad you're clearing it up.
Fabricated. That's all fabricated. The J.A. Mikovitz at Gmail was literally created. My name wasn't Mikovitz. My name was Nolde. And so when they said I signed all those contracts, nope, didn't steal. But that's the God in all of it, because I was J6 kidnapped by Ventura sheriffs. It's all right there in the journal Science in 2011, because they were trying to cover up that COVID-19 is premeditated murders of unchecked, untested, unsafe vaccines, since all liability was removed from pharma and placed on Fauci and HHS. And that's why we're in a great place with Secretary Kennedy and Ron Johnson and all those heroes right now. ACIP, everything we're seeing is, they're coming at all stops, and even shooting us with guns at this point, because we know what's happening. So
let me play a clip, Judy. I want to get your take on this.
I'd love to hear it.
Okay,
because I know that.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I want to get your take. Here we go. I'm going to play it.
Donald Trump works for DARPA. Peter Thiel works for DARPA. J.D. Vance is DARPA, okay? That's who's running this game. And Russians try to warn us. The Russians took a pulse microwave device and pointed it at the U.S. Embassy in Moscow from 1967 all the way to 1973. In that time frame, they had more diagnoses of tinnitus, Meniere syndrome, voices, mental illness, but here's the big one. We had 3 straight ambassadors develop blood cancers. Okay. Turns out in 1973, Henry Kissinger, Secretary of State, has to give hazard pay to anybody who was in the embassy at that time. Do you know how they solved the problem? You want to know where the idea of tinfoil hats came from, my friend? They put tinfoil all up in the U.S. embassy when they found out what the Russians were doing. And what did the Russians tell them? We're trying to warn you that what you're about to do is going to be a big problem. They're not coming after us with guns because they know we'd shoot them. They're coming after us with needles to kill us. And they're using electromagnetic radiation to do this silently so that we have no earthly idea what's really going on. They can use light frequencies to destroy the leptin melanocortin pathways in the brain to control people. They are using an angle of attack that none of you are prepared for. Not one of you. In fact, most of you are walking right into their hands because all of you are addicted to what the technocrats are selling you. We find out that every jab, not just the Pfizer one, every single one out there, including the one that was used in China, has 51 to 55 elements that are not supposed to be in there. You want to find out the really interesting part? All jabs have 100% chromium in them. Do you know why they pick chromium? It has a +6 oxidation state. What does that mean? It means it's a much more tunable atom when it interacts with electromagnetic radiation. Want to hear something even crazier? Chromium isn't found in every single drug that Big Pharma makes. Did you know that? So you got these high atomic elements with non-native EMF, and it's always associated with these unusual diseases that humans are getting. This is the collateral effects of the bioweapons program.
All right. I can't wait to hear you unload on this one. What do you think when people hear this? What are you thinking, Judy Mikovitz, Dr. Judy Mikovitz?
Well, the first thing I say is J.D. Vance and Donald Trump don't work for DARPA. They're the president and the vice president. I mean, the vice
That's
president.
true. Yeah.
You know, and what I will say is DARPA on April 6th of 2009, when 2009, you hear me, I just told you when I left the National Cancer Institute and from Fort Detrick, and where I was doing fermentation chemistry, even developed the cell line where Ebola was manufactured, and that was the CIA in Reston, Virginia. And I'll pop in the show notes for you the 1994 publication from Nature that shows you that. So Trump and J.D. Vance, was J.D. Vance even born in 94? Come on. You know, I mean, but this is the kind of shit people go after to try to, I'm sorry.
No, you're okay. You're okay. We're not on live radio. We're good. Go ahead.
Type of BS that people do in order to blur the lines, just like, oh, I worked for Tony Fauci or alongside him. No, I couldn't stay in a room with that man without kicking him in the what he doesn't have.
Sure.
And you see, I was just a kid. I was 25 years old, and it's a lot like Robert Malone. We're the same age. So what you see is the corruption going back where the students or the technicians or the graduate students are given work by mentors, and some of whom are completely corrupt. And I'm going to say in the case of Robert Malone, it's you know, it was David Baltimore, and they own the journals, and they own the National Cancer Institute. And ever since 1980, when I walked in the National Cancer Institute, they had an HIV/AIDS drug resistance program. Oh, an HIV/AIDS drug resistance program. And who ran it and had a dual post? Why don't we call them a Doge? And at the head of Tufts University, a professor controlling the grants in Boston, and to major, his name is John Coffin. And John Coffin, if you go look at our 2009 science paper, which we submitted to the Journal of Science on May 6, 2009, exactly a month after the CEO, James Dow of Genius Omnitura, who developed all the botanical cures for those cancers and natural products from the earth, and how this 5G and the bioweapons. Remember, the satellites to Russia were at Fort Detrick. And yes, I worked right in the biological response modifiers program in the biosafety level 3, right next to Sergei Netaspasov, who everybody knew was KGB. So what was our DARPA really doing when John Coffin became the first reviewer of the XMRV? Why don't I just say SARS-CoV-2 causing all of these diseases? When you apply a certain frequency, you can activate the expression of the virus from the latency, exactly the right S protein, N protein, surface unit it was called, or spike. Well, Dr. Sandy Rossetti, also at the National Cancer Institute in 1980, and part of the SES, the Senior Executive Services since the mid-80s, that's Frank Rossetti's wife, she actually published that the surface unit envelope of an envelope virus or spike protein alone cause disease, and all you had to do was flip it out. So you see, in 2006, when the prostate cancer associated virus, criminal Joe DeRisi, UCSF, right where we got the AIDS patients. Remember, Tony Fauci said only gay men, IV drug users, and prostitutes could get HIV and therefore AIDS. Why? Because HIV was forced on those cultures and populations by way of the hepatitis B vaccine. The first gain of function virus was HIV, and it spread in the hepatitis B vaccine. That's why it's given on the first day of birth. So you can mess up the epigenetics, the X chromosome methylation. That's me. I'm an identical twin. X chromosome, the only difference, that's your antivirus. That's your mRNA sending fire trucks to the fire. Why don't we call them exosomes? To fight the synthetic or manufactured monkey, mouse, cow, pig, aborted fetal. All of those cells, but you had to grow those viruses in on-growing cell lines. How about human embryonic kidney cell line? How about Vero monkey kidney cell line? And then HEK, human embryonic kidney cell line. That's how they changed out SARS-CoV-2, because HIV didn't spread very well, and they couldn't get away with the game with their condoms and, whatever Bill Clinton was doing under the desk with Monica Lewinsky. I don't know. I was kid. I didn't behave that way.
I think that was a big distraction. Go ahead from what was really happening.
But again, it was promoting the whole idea that there's no such, oral sex, and the condom was no better than the mask, caused the disease. So when you start talking about the EMFs, who was Leidos? Who is Leidos? Leidos. Don't pretend this is Russia. This is America. This is the corrupt government, Obama, Biden, Hillary, and I'll text you the Moore paper. SARS-CoV-2 was injected in every polio vaccine since 2004 and every flu shot. SARS-CoV-2. So it couldn't possibly have caused COVID, nor did HIV cause AIDS, because I defended my PhD thesis a week after Magic Johnson was declared positive, antibody positive. So we're playing it, and that was November 14th, 1991. And the only question my thesis committee, bunch of corrupt, compromised scientists, conflicted science, they steal the students' work. And then they patent it, they give it to somebody else, they call it something else. They give the student, the slave student, the PhD, and the student, let's just say Robert Malone, they don't put him on patents. Robert Malone didn't have anything to do with mRNA, and the first time he said it, it was God. Messenger RNA is God. But the monkey, mouse, cow, pig, aborted fetal DNA, only hurt the little black kids in the military, and the heavy injected started on the first day of birth with epigenetics. That was my PhD thesis. TGF beta, a key part of cardiomiracle, and we'll talk about that later, TGF beta. And so developing natural products, this is the master regulator of the hematopoietic, the blood stem cell. The blood stem cell. Are we going to drive blood cancers? I just heard it. Well, who was Leidos? Leidos was your National Cancer Institute.
Wow.
Yes. How does that work? And they won't give me my retirement, and they say I didn't work there,
my gosh.
but this is the game they're playing with the Doge. Because when Ronald Reagan was shot in 1980, the assassination attempt, March 31st, 1980, what was he going to do? Reverse the federal government, reduce the size, stop bureaucracy that the American people didn't vote for. So Leidos is your bioweapons program. So he gets shot, which again, put the fear of God in him. Here you go, George Washington University. How interesting. We're all right there. I mean, and then Michael R. Hugo and Barbara Loe Fisher, 1984. Her book is a shot in the dark when she's showing how DTP shots. And the movie is 1986, theact.com. And that's who Michael R. Hugo, the attorney that wrote when Fauci told and Pharma told Reagan in 1986 and before that vaccines were unavoidably unsafe because the DTP shot was putting everybody diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis. And I didn't say AP. Oh, acellular? You mean you took out the debris of the animal and yeast and monkey and whatever, mRNA? Yeah. So it's been there all along. Every shot since 2009 has been a capital mRNA, a COVID shot. And why? Because they were liable for every single infection. And this is what Bobby Kennedy is showing you, ICANN, and everybody is showing you exactly how our federal government has done this pretty much since 1968. But I was a kid then. But this is the whole thing, because now Trump's truly taking this down, and JD Vance, and I can't even speak to Peter Thiel, these businessmen, and they know what they did, and this is what Trump's taking down. What did you know, and when did you know it? So Leidos, a bioweapons developer, what is in the airport? And why would any self-respecting American ever put their face in front of a camera in the airport or go through the Leidos machine and let them detonate with the frequencies, the bioweapons they've injected unchecked since 1986? There you are.
Gosh. Oh,
That's
I'm trying to digest all of that. So all the shots now, when you go in for a flu shot, because we talked about this in an interview probably several years ago, when you get a flu shot, when you get any of their, like the pneumonia shot, when you get all of those shots, is it just the COVID shot over and over and over again?
Correct. They're all COVID shots since 2009. And unfortunately for Trump, after the retaliation for his warp speed, which really was a great achievement, because in warp speed time, for the first time ever, he did a 40,000 person clinical trial that they didn't destroy the control group on. And this is the movie we watched here in Boise, Idaho last night, Follow the Silence. So look up followthesilence.com and go watch that movie, and you'll see how this plays out. And we're so to Mickey Willis and others for these films that are fabulous.
Let me comment on that, because a lot of people, myself included, were kind of disturbed when Operation Warp Speed came into play. And you're saying that by doing Operation Warp Speed, if I'm understanding correctly, you can correct me, that there was a clinical trial done that would have never gotten done?
Correct. That never before.
Interesting.
No, never before has any vaccinated, unvaccinated clinical trial been done. And that 1986 act was violated by every single member of Congress and the Senate. As you heard, Bernie Sanders and Schumer's, everybody takes it. Remember when Bobby said, Don't you dare imply
Mhm.
that I took one dime from pharma or Fauci. That's why I get a little upset. Don't you dare imply I ever worked for that man. So, you know,
Sorry.
no, but
Hey,
you
at
can see
best I was saying you whistle blew on him. So I mean, you know what? That is
no,
a
I
piece
told him
of
to go
info.
Fauci himself in
Uh,
19 and cuss them all. But it was also Gallo.
good. Yeah.
It was also Chabner. It
Mm.
was your National
It was a
Cancer.
cabal, a criminal cabal.
It was your National Cancer Institute. And they brought Leidos in sometime in the mid 90s. They forced the sale as the Center for Cancer Research. And I'll also put a picture in your text that you can show in the show
Mm-hmm.
notes
Okay.
of November 8th, 2011, where Fauci, November 8th, 2011, November 9th was the first chapter of our book, Plague of Corruption, which published April 14th,
Mm-hmm.
2020, and November 9th, that chapter,
Excellent book. I've read it.
it was called Scientist at Sea.
Mm.
So when you realize they were so arrogant, they had no idea I was married, so they were so arrogant to think that they could Hillary me and Epstein me in the same 10 days.
Oh my
You know, I shouldn't
gosh.
be laughing, but
Well,
God is good. And man, they got caught because you can't go out there and murder people, Hillary.
mm,
You know, you can't go out there and play these games. When you read what they did, and you know what we, the people, and the National Cancer Institute, the hardworking people who go to work at 3 a.m. Yeah,
mhm.
Bobby put the forward to that book, but he didn't write it until after he saw our Truth About Cancer talk, Persecution and Cover Up, October 12th, 2019. I'll go back to, so how did Fauci et al. Retaliate against President Trump?
Mhm.
Ah, they tricked him by criminal Alex Azar, the former head of
Mhm. Yes.
DHS. They tricked him on September 19th, 2019, into signing the universal flu vaccine. So it's in and into law, universal flu vaccine. So you see, he did warp speed. Hydroxychloroquine, they poo-pooed and did those criminal studies. Chlorine dioxide is not chlorine bleach. Learn your chemistry, folks.
Mhm.
And but that's on the American people, because what Trump did was give you what you want. And if you follow the signs, people were begging for this. These people lined up for these clinical trials. And in those literally 2 months, every injury that Mark Inc., Mikovitz and Rossetti Consulting did from the time I got out of jail in 2015 until they finally slaughtered me in 2019. They said, if that woman, I love it. If
If
that
that
woman
woman.
that
Oh my
woman
gosh.
gives one more opinion
Mhm.
in vaccine court. I'm an adjunct professor in George Washington University Law School's vaccine injury clinic. We did
Wow.
4 years of cases of vaccine injuries. And every single thing you saw in that movie last night was something they already knew would happen from a variant of HIV's envelope, GP120. The COVID, the SARS-CoV-2, COVID never was SARS-CoV-2. HIV never was AIDS. We need to stop. The infection is not the disease. When you
Mm.
inject something called a vaccination, which is not an immunization, that's an extermination and a sterilization. Immunization, immunity is freedom from government tyranny
Mm.
in Noah Webster's 1828 dictionary.
Love
And
it.
vaccination can only be cow blood, cowpox. It's right there in your founding fathers dictionary. If we knew our history, like Trump and my pastor Rob McCoy, and of course
Mhm.
the late great Charlie Kirk. Yeah, if anybody knew the history of our country, they wouldn't be belly aching when people mix up and call immunization vaccination. Your laws
Mm.
require immunization. Immunization is not a word in the 1828 dictionary, but immunity is freedom from government tyranny. And we're making a lot of headways in the laws. Yeah, really? You mean 1828? Last time I looked, 1776 was the declaration. But even 1871, there was a civil rights law called 42 USC 1983. 1980s, your best civil rights law in all the land. That's what Michael R. Hugo helped me file pro se. I couldn't get a lawyer. So you see, there have been heroes of the faith and healers of the faith that knew I was telling the truth all along, and we preserved the data at the costs and the loss, and the murder and the martyr of many of our friends and family members, including the murder and martyr of my husband, David Nolde, on December 3rd, 2021. Hey, we got new scum. God is good.
Oh my gosh.
Because who filed a lawsuit on June 2020 against Newscomb, Fauci, and Levin, the head of public health at the time of Ventura County? David Nolde, Judy Mikovitz Nolde, and everybody else, and Larry Klayman. You can find that information. You see, so I was censored and we were silenced because this had to play out according to God. We the people have to stand together and realize all this, Russia bullshit, and anything that is any way. Trump did that study. And then September 19th, 2019, you might as well have put a gun to his head and said, sign the universal flu vaccine, because every moron in the United States of America was begging to be jabbed.
Yeah.
And was lied to and wasn't protected. But what's great about React 19 and Bree Dressen, and we were all here in Boise, Idaho last night. And in fact, I'm at the Energy Frequency Healing Center of the Karlfeldt Center, Dr. Michael Karlfeldt, where we're using the frequencies to heal. So they can hit the bioweapon, but we know how to heal them because we have a lot of good people who develop that technology. And if we, the people who would stand up and take our sovereignty back and get rid of all of them in love, React 19 is, hey, we responded in anger and HIV AIDS, yes. I told him what he could do to himself, and yes, I was angry.
Good.
Not bitter, angry. My mother was bitter, but that's the Cherokee.
Well, you had room. You had the right to be.
No, we don't. There's no righteous anger. There is
well, that's
no
fair.
righteous anger.
That's fair.
Only Jesus. Only Jesus was a righteous man, and so none other. And so that's what React 19, the message of last night, this movie, everything that's going on the highway, everything you do, Kate, to stay in it with us, and all the developers who are leaning on God and trusting God. We're one nation under God, individual, not under government. We never were, but we, the people, have to get our country back in love, because all those people they are morons. They're willfully ignorant. But the word means hard-hearted. Ask Grok. I corrected Grok recently. Well, because they said, oh, it's a psychiatric term of you have an IQ between 70 and 90. No, you're willfully ignorant. I see how you could use it that way, Grok said. Yes.
That's going to be my new word, Judy.
The hard-hearted is the issue. Well, I'm told by my pastor that I should probably use moron-y, because in the Bible it's moron-y. So I'm working on my language. I'm working so hard to make sure that we can keep our love and our React 19 in COVID-19, the way we react. No anger, and we in love. Let's love each other.
Right.
Let's keep each other.
And I'm sure one of your messages is stop taking their shots. Stop believing that your immune system comes in their vial, right, with their needle, right? I would imagine.
It's all the shots. I've been on
Yeah.
the shots. If you follow us on X, Dr. Judy A. Mikovitz, PhD, I believe it's at some, and you can see that on our website, therealdrjudy.com, which we started in 2022, by the way. And that's a great story. Yes, my message is stop all the shots. and but also stop shooting yourself with Ozempic. Stop shooting yourself. Oh, I have it my way. I caused this dermatitis with those shots I've been getting since birth, or my parents did. And please don't say, I cured my cancer, I cured anything. No, you decided to choose Jesus. You decided to stop poisoning yourself. You decided that your God was the one true God and not some medical deity. You decided to take back your power and trust Jesus. And natural products, it's everything. It's food. We're not going to take your drugs. I don't go in a grocery store that puts you in a mask. Find a way in love to get out of a mask. Don't go in anywhere near Starbucks. I mean, every bottle of alcohol, wine, beer, or anything else in a grocery store has 300 chemicals that the FDA doesn't list. So with Secretary Kennedy, we will be going after everyone, we the people, and we're saying, no, correct the label on this can. You should every chemical in that can. And that's one of the things they won last week, just before the assassination. We can't get direct to consumer advertising off the TV. But what we can do is make sure every single side effect is listed in the commercial. Will be over 5 minutes long. And by the end of the day, everybody will see themselves and their disease in the shots they took. Have fun, folks. And I mean, the Gotti paper, there's so much information, and I'm just so grateful to the Trump Kennedy administration, I like to call it, for for having the courage. They're a team of rivals, and they came in there and said, okay, I see the damage. I see what it's doing to our country. We've all, what can I do for my country? It's not take a shot.
Right.
It's stop. It's speak the truth in love. Let's get out there and come to places, energy healing. Come to Utah. I mean, there's a lot of great treatment, and get Cardio Miracle. We can get
Hey, you
clean.
mentioned that. So I've been taking that. I've been taking it twice a day, and I feel amazing. And I had never thought about taking it twice a day. So when I started doing that, I'm under so much stress, no sleep, the news cycle is insane, new studio. And I started taking it, and I can't tell you how good I feel, which is a surprise to me, actually, because with going on no sleep, I'm usually struggling. And I just have had more energy. I've been feeling great. I'm like, wow, this is so I'm surprised. My husband took it a while ago. My father-in-law took it a while ago. They swear by it. And then I started taking it, and I was like, wow. So you said something was in Cardio Miracle, right? Like the ingredients, like something was in it. That's good.
Over 50 powdered fruits and vegetables.
That's good.
You mean the leaves? Read the side of it. It's food.
Right.
You don't take food. I call it living mineral water, and I'll tell you the fun of that.
Okay.
So Cardio Miracle is a recipe. It's a pinch of this, and so you look at the scoop. It's like 10.5 grams.
Okay.
And then the FDA's label is criminal because it implies they add amino acids or things, and the micrograms, or the little bits that are there, are actually from the plants. You can actually quantify from the powdered plants the activity, the function.
Nice.
And there's a 2004 Botanical Drug Guidance Act upon which all that stuff we did, that we presented in that paper that ultimately got published and got corrupted back from 2009. So when if you know John Hewlett,
He's great.
At the Truth About Cancer, October 21st of 2021 in Nashville, Tennessee, Dr. Carl Felt from the Carl Felt Center, where I am in Boise, in Meridian, Idaho, right outside of Boise, and using those energy healing centers, we brought in the Cardio Miracle because we were both at this meeting, the Truth About Cancer. And I gave a talk which focuses always on pathways. I never focus on poisons. I never say the virus, EBV, because AIDS is an acquired immune deficiency. These diseases are not genetic. You have an acquired immune deficiency. You got it somewhere, environmental insults. Yes, from the over and over again, cow, pig, aborted fetal tissues, polyethylene glycol, antibiotics, cow blood, cow blood, cow blood. Every cow blood is a different lot.
Oh my
Every
gosh.
year we grow the stock like a sourdough or a yogurt stock. Every year we grow that in a fermenter in Fort Detrick, and we make another batch. I'm a fermentation chemist of beer or wine,
Mm-hmm.
and we powder that, and or we don't powder it. We inject it directly into the veins, as you hear in pandemic indoctrination.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Gates laughingly sitting there and saying, "We inject it right into the veins." Anyway,
Wow.
so I met John at
Mm-hmm.
the awards dinner that night for Roger Stone
Yeah, he's
and me
fantastic.
and,
He's got quite the
and
story.
me and me, unfortunately. But when we went to this dinner, and I was blessed to sit with Stan Graham and John
Mm-hmm.
Hewlett of Cardio Miracle. And I said, John, I've seen the product, and I'm 90% convinced, because that is where my patents lie. And my whole career was botanical drug guidance with Genius Omnitura, the GENYOUS, Chinese guys
Mm-hmm.
with problem, because all of them were these guys with genius. They were in pharma, and they're like, this is insane. We can do this so much better by using a botanical adjuvant. And then you use the lowest dose of the medicine at the time, whether it was chemotherapy, Casodex, which is prostate cancer. All of that could have been cured. Biden need not prostate cancer or the Mitch McConnell look where the lights are on and nobody's home.
Yeah.
That came from the VP62 shot. We know exactly what shot he got, and just give it to him over and over again. And
So what convinced you? Because you have, I mean, you probably get presented with a lot of different products and everything, but why Cardio Miracle? What convinced you?
well, that night I said, okay, John, I'm 98%
Mm-hmm.
convinced. Do do the AI study, prove it functionally
Mm-hmm.
with a spectral clustering, light clustering.
Okay.
These are alkaline earth minerals like calcium, magnesium, bound to plants, because that's where we get our alkaline. Carbon, that's what makes it organic. Carbon hooked to a metal is organic,
Mm.
so
Wow.
not synthetic. Yeah, people don't know. And zinc, transition metals like zinc. So he was talking about chromium. No, chromium's in our peas. Chromium picolinate's very important
Yeah.
for metabolism and tryptophan metabolism, which comes from birds, essential amino acids. So anyway, what convinced me, I said, do the AI study. I didn't call it AI at the
Mm-hmm.
time, but he went, and on August 22nd of, I mean, August 15th of 2022, that paper was published,
Wow.
full access, every word of it. And it was the 3 pathways of all things COVID. And I'm like, boom, thank you, Jesus. Because
Wow.
I've done that my whole life, and I couldn't have put that recipe together like that.
Oh
And
my
so
gosh.
it hit TGF beta, because if you're inflamed, you cannot get to a mesenchymal stem cell. If you're inflamed, you cannot build the fascia. These are connective tissue disorders. You will not get there because you want to put the fire out. God will not let the organism, the host, die from
Mm-hmm.
all GMOs. So it's all the genetically modified foods
Yeah, all
and
these symptoms that are coming out that are insane and autoimmune and all of these things, right?
And so just, yeah, exactly. So the study, it was enos. It's not a nitric oxide booster, but the corrupt FDA won't let them change the label. And even Amazon sued them. Oh, you called it. No, we didn't. This 2022 paper, after they'd already manufactured this for 7 or 8 years
Mm-hmm.
since 2014, fine, we made it. We proved what it did better. And so this will be the new gold standard. You prove your recipe works. It's totally natural products. This isn't a take it. This is living water. Drink it. So
Yeah.
we get minerals, our bones, osteoporosis. We're taking the good minerals out of our bones, our bone marrow, where our
So
blood
true.
is, and we're driving disease because everything's synthetic. So we've
Well,
continued. So he did the study. It was perfect.
oh my
And I've
gosh.
vocal, loud leader ever since of let's do these kinds of studies on everything. And these recipes are food. The FDA has absolutely no authority. None. Hear me?
Wow.
None. We don't have to put any label on our soup at all, except for the label that's back there on the functional. The B12 is 1,000% more than you needed a day. And like, and somebody said, that's too much B12 for me. I got to inject mine.
Right.
Okay. If you're a moron and you want to play God,
More on E.
and you want to play God, that's how you get there. So I'm currently serving as chief scientific advisor of Cardio
You
Miracle.
are?
Yes, to just advise of how
I
to
had no
go.
idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, we
That's
don't
awesome.
that. But the better is Avery Jackson is a chief medical advisor, not officer, advisor. We just advise. We have no fiduciary. All we do is serve. Here I am, Lord. Who do
Wow.
I serve
Well,
this
no
day?
wonder I feel good because I'm surprised that I feel as good as I do because there's a lot of stress going on right now in my life, and I was actually kind of shocked to tell you the truth. I mean, I get sent a lot of supplements. I get sent everything. I mean, no, and you're the same, right? So everyone wants you to kind of evaluate and look at everything, and there's so many things out there, and there's and then when I had my father-in-law, my husband. When they were taking it, they just swore by it. They just love it. And my husband started taking it again, so I started taking it with him. And I've been shocked at how my
And that's
energy
the
level's
key.
so high.
The
So
key
that's
is
cool.
it's not a supplement. You don't
Yeah,
need to
yeah, you're
supplement
right.
God.
You're right.
It's nutrients that you don't get, and you don't get
Yes, like
nutrients.
replacing those and making sure that that foundation is there. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and so all you need is a couple of powders, and for less, and there's a couple of others that we've added since. And I know you're going to meet my new friend, my new best friend, Natalie Nicole from Dulce,
Oh, yeah.
because she actually did the same thing. She trailed me around since the last couple of years and went everywhere we went. And when you see people like that and they're showing you this, and I said, Natalie, I'm 90% convinced. Show me the pharma. Oh, there's Kirk. We'll let him get on with you.
Oh
And
my
so,
gosh, I love it.
and
Oh
so
yeah, Kirk
show
Moore.
me the functional study. So it'll
Mm-hmm.
be the new gold standard. Now you could take 3 powders and for less than $5 a day, fuel everything. It's just meal replacement. You get all the Ensure, you get all the glyphosate out of your world,
Amazing.
and everybody's a happy camper, and the
So,
government and savings account and Medicare and
right.
Medicaid, everything.
Oh my
This will
gosh.
the
So
schools,
you would
everything.
say that this is that's really important to know though, because we've talked about glyphosate a lot on the show and the buildup of glyphosate. So what it's doing in symptoms, like, we're getting the results, right? And all these crazy symptoms, and we've never been more unhealthy. And so this gets rid of the glyphosate. This kind of eradicates it.
Well, because your nutrients,
Okay.
you need minerals, true minerals for your own body to even fuel. Your kidneys won't work, your bone marrow. It doesn't get rid of it, but when you add a couple of other things, Stephanie sent a toxic legacy of glyphosate. It helps tremendously, but there's a couple of other things we'll show you in the
Okay.
next few shows. I don't want to
Yeah.
hold up beautiful Kirk
No,
Moore
that's
because
wonderful. You guys, I do have a link to this on my website. You can go right on the website. It's right at the top. So katedalleyradio.com, and you can get it. Just try it. Get some Cardio Miracle. Just try it, because I've been shocked. And I think it's really cool that you're involved with that, because that tells me a lot, because I know how picky you are. I know how serious you are about making sure that if you're going to take it and you're going to get involved with it, then I'm actually really happy about this. And I had taken it once before, but I'd only taken it once a day. Once I started taking it twice a day, I noticed a big difference with it. Do you take it twice a day? I'm just
I
wondering.
take it whenever I don't give away more than I have.
Okay, I like that. So
Because
you kind of using it
somebody
reserve
always
energy.
needs it more than I do.
I
So
love it.
when
That's
I'm
really
traveling a
cool.
lot, I definitely carry those
Yeah.
singles with me. And,
Well,
I put my vodka on the plane because your liver will detox the alcohol. Good tequila, get that good tequila. And she's like, "What is that?"
I
And
love
I my water bottle in my Icelandic water, and I'm putting the vodka in the water. And she's like, "Well, you got to drink
my
that before you
gosh.
get off the
Judy's
plane."
getting a
And you
Judy's getting a good buzz while she's flying and getting her minerals.
We call it Maha
No hangover.
Margarita. Yeah, exactly. You don't get a hangover. You call it
No hangover.
Maha Margarita. The Maha Margarita.
Oh my gosh.
Margarita.
I'm dying. I'm dying. That's the best. Judy, thank you so much for coming on. I'll have you on again soon because there was like 5 more things I had to ask you. And so I'm going to have you on probably in the next 2 weeks because we have to do part 2.
Sounds good.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you. All
Hi, Judy.
right. Okay. Thank you, Judy. Dr. Kirk Moore, how are you?
I'm great, Kate. How are you?
Oh my gosh. So your case ended. Your case was
Yeah.
dismissed, and I have not had you on the show since. And so I'm actually
Well,
really happy.
you were going off the air. You had told me
Oh, yeah.
that you were going off the air, I think, shortly thereafter. And
I was censored at the same time your case was I was censored the night before Independence Day, and you were going to court on Monday, and we were trying to get people to the Capitol, and I wasn't on the air to help with that. I helped before, but I wasn't on the air like in that day, and and then I learned that your case is dismissed, and then I was looking at some of the documentation that started kind of coming out too with your case, and it was kind of interesting, some of the contracts, 8 or so different contracts that went out, and some of them long before 2020, and to get those supplies up for a performance period of March 2020 to December 2020, and I was like, oh my gosh, this kind of puts the nail in the coffin for preemptive, knowing, planned, pre-planned, the whole 9 yards. And so I want to talk to you about that, but I also, Dr. Kirk Moore, I'm so glad you're on with me. I also want to kind of get what happened, like behind the scenes, fill us in, because you were going to be prosecuted and possibly do like 20 to 25, right?
So the max sentence could have been up to 35.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. People typically don't get max sentence, although the way the prosecution was treating me, they would have definitely asked for it.
Oh my God.
They hated me, absolutely hated me. They looked at me with such scorn and disdain when I walked in that courtroom. It was crazy.
Oh man, I can't even imagine what you were going through. And we texted a couple times. I can't even imagine. And so, what was the catalyst in your view? Like, what was going on that I mean, when did you get a spark of hope?
Well, look, I thought the case, we had 2 days of jury selection, and then we had 3 days of trial. And at the end of that third day, so Friday afternoon, I felt really good. I thought we had punched a bunch of holes in their case. I didn't think that they proved that they still own the product when it was delivered to my office. They couldn't put in the contracts that they had with Moderna and Pfizer because it was a protected contract, and the DoD wouldn't let them unredact the contracts. So we said, well, you can't present the contracts in an unredacted form. And they called us in court. They called anybody who was pushing back against the vaccine. They physically called us the enemy. So, you had the prosecution witnesses calling half of the United States the enemy.
Oh my gosh.
The citizens of the United States the enemy. It was a really eye-opening experience to see what to see how things kind of materialized. But I was up all night Friday night, going through the 3 days of trial, and going through and listening to or writing down and looking through the notes that I'd taken, and we had gotten a transcript because we were kind of looking to see what some people had said, the actual wording of what it was that they had said. So we had some trial transcripts that we had paid for to get, before they were edited and updated. And so I was going through all that, and the whole time I was just thinking, I think we did a really good job. I don't think that they've proven their case. But I'm also looking over at the other side, and I'm going, these are smart people over there. The lead prosecutor, Todd Boughton, is a Harvard graduate. Not that that necessarily kind of means an awful lot anymore.
No, it actually means the opposite. It means really negative to me. I'm like,
It's
oh,
just kind of like,
Harvard. Okay.
again,
Or
he was
Yale.
a selected person, not necessarily, not necessarily belong there.
Right.
But but so my mentality was, look, I think we're doing really well, but I'm also thinking, these are pretty smart people on the other side. So, what are they thinking? And so I'm trying to put myself into their shoes. And then you always have that, I've never been through a jury trial, and, I've never been through a trial before. So you're always kind of wondering, what does the jury think?
Yeah.
And I still want to know what the jury thinks, because, Saturday morning we get the phone call, AG Bondi is going to cancel the case. And so the jury was just notified, said, hey, you don't have to come back on Monday. But I would love to be able to find out who they are and handle them and give them a call and say, hey, what were your thoughts? Because I'm curious.
Yeah, me too. So
so-
where do you think, okay, so when I talked to you before all of this, and I'm going to remind everybody, you were accused of patients, which is a patient-doctor relationship, by the way, that patients that didn't want the shot, you were accused of doing away with the shot and not giving it to them because they didn't want it, but they still had to keep their job, or they wanted a kidney transplant, or whatever the case was. And you were an outstanding doctor in listening to your patients, and I so commend you on that. And I think you're amazing. I think you are amazing. So I love what you did. And they tried to come out after you. They tried to make it a federal case, which it was a state, but they tried to make it a federal case, and they tried to say that you were defrauding the government because you weren't actually injecting it into the arm when somebody said they didn't really want it. And so this case, when I talked to you before, the judge wasn't really in your corner. And I remember, you were talking about the fact that you weren't even really going to hardly be able to present anything in your own defense. So this the unredacted, when the judge said, they could not redact those contracts that came out that really are damning evidence that 2020 was planned. Is that the turning point? And why do you think he allowed, or that he said that? Why do you think he suddenly went, no, you can't redact that? Because didn't you kind of feel like he was on their side, like a little bit more, like the prosecutor?
I don't think he was definitely on our side.
Yeah.
I
Didn't seem
think
that way.
most judges try to kind of like split the baby. And I think that there was going to be, look, legal precedent probably he would have been overturned, I think, in a matter of about 15 minutes had he allowed a redacted contract to be presented at trial. Or if he'd allowed, out of a 50-page contract, to allow page 14 to be, the sole piece of evidence submitted as an exhibit. So he got the contract unredacted for attorney's eyes only. And then after that happened, the prosecution decided that they weren't going to present it. And I don't know why. My attorneys have not told me. I have not seen the contract. I have two suppositions. One, I think that it showed the amount of money that the federal government was paying.
I read through
to these corporations, which would have been an eye-opening experience to the jury. And I also think that the dates and signatures that we would have seen on there would have predated any of the COVID kind of emergency stuff. I think that it would have been, dating all the way back to, at least 2019, but probably even sooner than
2016 and one in 2012. I was reading through them, and I was shocked because the one in 2000, the one in 2000 that was going into 2019, it said a performance period. Get ready for this performance. I love that. Performance period of March through December 2020. And then it had subsequent different periods of time as well. And then it said it was going to be, this contract was valid 2019, and this was the one signed in 2019 to exactly December, the last day of December 2024. And I was so shocked reading those because I thought it was so damning I thought that's probably why they had to just drop it and walk away and stop prosecuting you, because I just felt like it was just that damning. I mean, it was bad.
Well, look, they were fighting in a lot of ways. They were fighting an uphill battle to begin with on all of it.
For sure.
They were trying to they were trying to make a state case. They're trying to make a federal case out of a state issue.
Yes.
In our opinion, you and I have talked about that.
I asked you about that because I was like, why is this
Right.
a federal case? I mean, this makes
Right.
no sense. And yeah, they were trying.
Well, and so the federal government tries to step in, and they know they have a 92% conviction rate. And and I think that they initially thought, well, you know what, we'll accuse this guy, we'll tell him that he's going to go to jail for 35 years, and then we'll get him to take a plea deal, and then we can notch up a win, and then we can show all these other doctors, hey, this is what happens to you when you go up against the federal government. I think that that's what they looked at. I don't think that our prosecutors that are here in Utah, they brought one over from New York, but I don't think that my chief prosecutor, Todd Boughton, and his boss, essentially his senior, Jacob Strain, the other lady was Sachiko Jepson, but I don't think that they actually realized everything that was going into this. I think it was an eye-opening experience to them.
Yeah.
They just thought, hey, this guy committed fraud. We told him to do something. He defrauded us of $28,800 worth of product that, he knew was still ours. And therefore here it's a slam dunk case. And we'll get this, to, just kind of, we'll put it to bed pretty quickly and it won't be that big a deal.
And the big question would be, and why is it the government's?
Well,
why does the government own this?
Yeah, I mean, they were trying to, that's what I'm saying. At the end of the week, they were, they were trying to put, a round peg in a square hole. And trying to just, the harder they hammered, they were trying to get it to go in. And it wasn't going, because I don't think that they had managed to, they hadn't managed to show that it was $28,800 worth of product. They had only managed to say that it was, $22.70 worth of product, which doesn't meet the federal requirements for a felony.
Wow.
And then they were also trying to say that, I defrauded them because it was still owned by them when it was sitting in my freezer on my property, and they had turned it, the DOD had turned it over to Pfizer, and then Pfizer had turned it over to UPS or FedEx, and UPS or FedEx had delivered it to me. And the liability had changed, not from the government's liability anymore. So if something happened and the truck blew up on the way to delivering it to me, the federal government wasn't responsible for replacing it. Pfizer wasn't responsible for replacing it. The insurance company for, FedEx or UPS or, DHL or whatever was responsible for replacing it. So you can't have, you can't claim that you own something if you don't have the liability for the product when it goes bad or when it doesn't get delivered.
Right.
So all of that went against them, during that week. And I just don't think that they had proven that they owned it. And again, that's where my dilemma was on Friday afternoon and Friday night. I thought we had a really good week, but I'm also looking at the other side going, hey, these people are not, and they still had witnesses to present. They still had the FBI agent, the lead FBI agent that was running the case against me. They couldn't present the other one because he was in jail for dealing drugs. But
oh my gosh,
he got busted and they had to change the indictment. And then they had the third thing that when they added that superseding indictment in January of this year, they said that I tampered with evidence and I destroyed government property. Well, I can only tamper with evidence if it's their evidence. So they were again struggling with ownership,
right?
And also by law, and we got them both. All three of their witnesses that they had that were the government witnesses, the guy from the guy from BARDA, the guy from the prep
Homeland? No.
Oh gosh, he was the COVID czar for the CDC. And also the Utah Department of Health guy said that by law, I was required to, on any expired product, I was required to dispose of it anyway. And the last delivery that I had taken was on a product in September of 2022. And it expired at the end of October of 2022. So even if they came and indicted me in January of 23, every single bit of that product was expired and gone. And by law, I was supposed to dispose of it anyway. So it's kind of like they're arguing against themselves. in that respect anyway. So there were just a lot of things that were going against them. Catherine Watt, Sasha Latipova have been, on a lot of airwaves here, talking to Dr. Drew, talking to a number of people online about like how they actually don't think that it was the pushback from the public, which I don't think it hurt. But they think that it was the fact that that all this evidence was potentially coming in, about these contracts that you just mentioned. And they just, couldn't do it. And in spite of the judge kind of hamstringing us and look, fraud requires intent. Okay. That's the law in our country. And they were trying to get me to not be able to tell what my intent was. They were trying to basically, put a muzzle on me and not allow me to speak in my own defense.
Because your intent would have opened up a door to what's actually happening with them, right? And there maybe their patent ownership of 51% on the shots.
Right. Well, that, and also, they had to prove that I intended to defraud the government. And so if I get up there and I say, hey, look, the only intent I had was to take care of my patients. And this was the best way that I found to take care of my patients. I had no intent on defrauding anybody. I didn't pay for the product. The product, was sitting in my fridge. You delivered it to me to do with as I pleased and as I was required to do in terms of patient care and taking care of my patients, the one patient that's there in front of me. Look, and I make this argument all the time. The only law that was broken, okay, there is no law. And we got the CDC guy, we got the BARDA guy, we got the Utah Department of Health guy to say anything. There were no laws. There were no COVID laws that were passed. Okay. So there was no legal requirement for me to inject anybody with any product.
Amen.
Okay? And then the second thing was the only law that was broken here was the HIPAA violation law, which was allowing people that you didn't know, the clerk at a grocery store, the front counter person at a gym, or the hostess at a restaurant or whatever, to ask you your personal and private medical history.
Right.
Okay. That was the one side of it. And then the second side was to require you, without your own consent, to disclose that information, to them. So, that was the only law that was broken. I don't see the government going after the, airline companies and restaurants and gyms and grocery stores and everybody else that was asking people for their own private health information. That, if I'd have violated a HIPAA law, that's what they tried to go after Dr. Haim in Texas for violating HIPAA laws, because he supposedly was a whistleblower, and he was calling out the Texas Children's Hospital for still doing transgender surgeries on minors when they told Texas Children's Hospital that they were no longer allowed to do that. And so they tried to indict him for violation of HIPAA laws. Okay. So, on the one hand, they're doing that in Texas, and on the other hand, they're trying to say that they don't apply to me in Utah. So I just thought it was an interesting dichotomy.
Really, yeah.
His case got dismissed. My case went to trial, and then ultimately got dismissed
Oh my gosh.
for
I'm
multiple
so happy.
reasons.
Well, I'm so happy about that, obviously, and I know you are, and that'd be the understatement of the year. And I'm looking at this, and Utah again in the news, right? We're in the news a lot. Last 5 years, I'm just it's a lot. And for this case, the reason I wanted you back on was because a lot of times when this happens and you have a case that is dismissed and then everybody walks away and goes on to the next thing without really learning or understanding how the government operates, what they're doing, what cards were shown, what actually happened as kind of the fallout of this, because we could learn a lot for the future, right? I mean,
Yeah, look, I had the distinct pleasure of being on Tucker Carlson's show on
That's
on
right.
Monday of Labor Day. And we went through the whole story. It was a really, really good conversation. And I think we went through all of that, and we really, really disclosed and demonstrated exactly what the government does to people and what it is that they're trying to do to a US citizen, that all I was doing was taking care of my patients. And the extent that they will go to do that. They put me in jail twice for 34 days. One time they put me in jail because I sent a text message to one of my co-defendants that we had court the next day. Rah, rah, we have a motion to dismiss. Let's keep our fingers crossed. And so that was a violation of my pretrial restrictions. And therefore I was a flight risk. and I was a danger to the community because I wasn't abiding by my pretrial restrictions.
Wow.
And they kept me and they put me in jail for 22 days because of that, in a cell for 22 out of 24 hours. You know, all because I sent a text message to my co-defendant saying, "Hey, we have court tomorrow. You should bring your attorneys."
I
You
have
know,
no
and that
words.
just, you know, again, it was not about finding, this is our justice system. It's not about finding the truth. It's not about justice. It's just about winning. And they
Mm-hmm.
look at this thing as a win, as a winning, losing, win-loss kind of percentage numbers, and that's all they do. And they come down with, they look, we're talking about $28,800 worth of product that they claim that they,
Mm-hmm.
that I defrauded them of. They probably spent 3 to 5 million bucks on my
Right.
trial prep and everything going into this. Okay, so how is that? I mean, they spending my own money, your money, to go after somebody over 28 grand. If they would have come to me
Mm-hmm.
in January of 23 and said, "Hey, look, I think you stole $28,000 worth of our product. Just pay us back for the product and a $5,000 fine, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll let this thing go away," I probably would have said, "Okay, all right, here you go." You know,
Yeah.
and but instead, no, they look at this, um, and just like they're doing to Candace Owens right now, with the French government going after her when she's talking about, Emmanuel Macron married to a guy. This is what they do.
Yeah.
They don't treat their citizens. They just look at you with disdain and
Mm-hmm.
and scorn, and they just try to crush you. That's all it is.
Oh, man. I feel for you having gone through going through this, and I know they tried to make an example out of you and to everybody else, to scare them into, being complicit with their next set of plans, whatever those are. I do feel like something's coming. They've been gearing up for it for a long time, and so they're not going to let those things go to waste. And in this, I think people need to understand that the government owns patents on these things, and you should ask yourself why that is. And then also, because like you said, there wasn't any law or anything, so they were really trying to conjure up a case on you and
Right.
make you an example. And then I think when all of this was coming out, maybe there was a minute of, oops, we can't let too much out of the bag, because then people are going to realize that this is so was so pre-planned. And the contract, one of the contracts we're talking about was the Janssen one, because it talked about these periods of performance, and they did it well before 2020, but suddenly knew that in March of 2020 they were going to have to kick in some of these things for the money the government was giving them. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal what came out, because it kind of tells everybody a glimpse of what happened. Right? Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think, the reason why they were muzzling me, they didn't want to talk about COVID at all. They just wanted to come in and say, "Hey, we gave him a product that was worth
Yeah. How dare
$28,000.
he?
They didn't even want
Hmm.
to mention the word COVID. They just want to say, "We told him to do this, with that product, and he didn't do that. So therefore he's accused and deserves to be punished for fraud." And but then in the process of doing all that, they had to disclose some of that information. They stepped on themselves a couple of
Hmm.
times. We had to have a 2 hour pre-court hearing over how to
Hmm.
address that, because they had opened up the door for me to be able to kind of present my case. And then on top of that, right before trial, they filed 4 motions that basically were just going to try to
Hmm.
keep me from talking about my intent and what it was that I was going to do. The judge still hadn't ruled finally on that. I don't know.
So it's
There were
still
times
lingering?
this.
Is it still,
What's
because
that?
is it still lingering? Because someone in the audience wants
No.
to know if you're suing them for damages.
So there's something called the Hyde Amendment, which I can't sue for legal expenses. Um, well, in other words, they said, "Hey, we'll dismiss this with prejudice," which means that they can't come after me. They can't come after me again and be double jeopardy. But they asked me to sign a waiver for the Hyde Amendment, which means that I can't go after them for my legal expenses.
Amazing.
There are some tort claims that I'm told, is another way for me to kind of pursue it, which would be separate and outside of that. Outside of that, I don't know. I don't have any money. I can't hire an attorney to go after that.
Well, they drained you. My gosh, look at how.
If somebody wants to do it on a contingency basis, I
Jeez.
mean, I probably lost $6 million in
Hmm.
business. over the course of the last 3 to 5 years. And my legal expenses were approaching $1 million. So anyway, I've thought about it. I don't know that I have I don't have the financial means to do it, and I don't know that I have the focus, and it's not deep in my gut right now to go after them for that. What's deep in me right now is to get these freaking shots off the market, and then to pursue that even further with getting all vaccines off the market. And
I agree. I agree. Judy was awesome in coming on and talking about how all these shots are just a basic COVID shot over and over again. I just can't even imagine what that's doing to people's bodies. But
well, that's what they're trying to do, right?
yeah,
I mean, they're trying to make mRNA be the new technology and replace all of the quote unquote old technology, which is all fake science anyway, to, this new fake science that is actually, they know it's killing people. They absolutely have the data to show that it's killing people. Look, Brianne Dressen runs react19.org. She probably has one person per week that is committing suicide because of the COVID vaccine injuries that she has. They're claiming that's 1 in a million people is going to have a vaccine injury.
Wow.
If she has 350 people that are killing themselves every year, that's 1 in a million right there. Okay. And there are dozens of organizations that have that. You remember Senator Johnson talks about how he likes numbers, and he was going off on numbers last week with Dr. Jake Scott. And I shouldn't even call him a doctor. He's an embarrassment to medicine. And the fact that he's teaching people at Stanford University and teaching medical students to go through this is an absolute disgrace. He embarrassed himself. He embarrassed his institution. He embarrassed the profession of medicine. He really did. For him to not know that what the mRNA technology is, for him to not know that this doesn't stay in your arm, for him to not know what the lipid nanoparticle was developed for in the first place, for him to parade out 661 cases of saline vaccine controlled studies and then have Aaron Siri in a matter of 3 minutes break it all down and show that there was only one out of those that only had a partial placebo study on less than 100 patients out of 1,000 that had a placebo, but only on the 4th shot, and the first 3 shots had been given to them. I mean, the guy's a disgrace. And he claims that I'm sorry, I'm going off on Dr. Scott.
Hey,
but
do it.
I'm telling you right now, for him to sit on TV and claim the victim that it was awful to watch hundreds of people under his care die from COVID is just is disgraceful. I mean, if you have 2, 3, 4 patients that die from the treatment that you're giving, you should be looking at that treatment and figuring out what it is that's going on, because these people shouldn't be dying. And the fact that I treated, along with Mary Talley Bowden and Ben Marble and everybody else, Ben Marble treated through his free doctor, free COVID doctor, whatever it is, I can't remember his website, sorry. But he treated over 30,000 patients and only had 6 deaths. I treated 4,000 to 5,000, counting the people that I did with my COVID vaccine, and I had 0 deaths. I took 2 people out of the hospital. I probably kept a dozen from going into the hospital, and not one of those people died. And you've got Jake sitting over there at Stanford University claiming that hundreds of people were dying under his care, and he did nothing about it. Nothing. He didn't change anything. He didn't change his routine. He had no discernment. He had no common sense. He didn't look at, hey, maybe it's the treatment regimen that we're doing. I remember Paul Merrick when he was in the ICU and he was talking about his history with vitamin C and everything else. He was like looking at, these septic patients that were coming in, and, and he wasn't able to do a lot. And so he started quote unquote experimenting. He said, hey, there's these people over there in Holland or somewhere in Europe that are using high dose vitamin C. Let me see if I can try that and see if it works. And he did. And then he ended up writing a whole chapter, a whole book on the treatment of vitamin C and sepsis. That's how medicine is. It's not just a protocol driven administrative, administrator down, kind of program. It's an art. And you're supposed to look at your patients and see what it is that's going on and modify and change things. I mean, I operate on patients all the time, and I don't know that 2, 3 weeks, a month goes by that I don't change something in the way I do things because of you know,
Yeah.
either seeing some follow-up patients from 5 years ago or seeing a follow-up patient from 5 days ago. I mean, that's what you should be doing in medicine. And these people do none of that. They just sit there and they just think, oh, I've got this algorithm and it says I need to do this. And so they just kind of put their blinders on and they forget about the human person that's there in front of them. These people have no humanity left. They are inhumane.
Yeah, a lot of them are eugenists, but at heart. But what was interesting too is one of the documents was to one of the contracts was to a company that deals with sepsis. That was kind of interesting to me because it was pre 2020, but they were telling them to gear up for 2020. It was odd. It was really odd.
Anthony Fauci told us it was going to happen in 2017.
Yeah,
Remember?
you're right.
He said
You're
we
right.
are going to have a
Yeah,
pandemic
I
during
know.
this administration. I mean, how
Or a
does he
contrived
know
one.
that?
Yeah, a contrived one for sure. It's truly amazing to me that we have smoking gun evidence, that there's the evidence on the table now that really makes you're going to know the criminal cabal in the government. This is why no matter what they say, I just don't even believe them anymore on anything because nobody can ever tell me when they're ever telling the truth. I mean, if I actually put a reward of $100,000 out there and said, "Tell me when the government is telling the truth," nobody would be able to claim that reward. That's sad. That is sad.
Well, look,
They're
I've
lying all the
gotten to the
time.
point, Kate and Judy, I've gotten to the point where I hear something, I hear something from the government or I hear something from the CDC or whatever, and they say you should do this. I do the exact opposite. I don't trust anything that comes out of any government agency any longer. I know that Judy doesn't, and she hasn't for years. Yeah, I mean, look, 2020, I was already skeptical on vaccines dating all the way back to 1989. You know, I had started kind of like, hey, you know, maybe 9/11 wasn't exactly what, you know, what we saw is happening. You know, I knew the JFK assassination was, you know, kind of iffy and there's some stuff in there. But, you know, then you start looking into it. Then you start looking into MLK. You start going all the way back to Abe Lincoln. You know,
Yes.
Abe Lincoln, you know, John Wilkes Booth was
Judy's
found in a
nodding.
barn.
Yes.
He
Yes.
was found in a barn and he was killed in the barn, and the government came out and said, well, we got him. You know, how do you know you got him? You just killed some guy that you say you got him.
Yeah.
And, you know, but where is it?
Right.
You know, and then the most recent one with the Charlie Kirk stuff. I mean, there's a gun that they just used to kill somebody. They don't have ballistics. They have a rifle that somehow managed to find its way off the roof, supposedly, when we don't even know that it was even on the roof, but it was wrapped up in a towel in some bush somewhere in a neighborhood. They're not going to have ballistics. They're not going to have anything. They're going to have some DNA of this kid. I would love to be, I mean, I'm not an attorney, but I already texted my attorney and I said, Kathy, you need to get on this case because you're going to get this guy off. There's no evidence that he did anything.
Right.
Okay. He hasn't confessed. There's no evidence of anything. All it is just fabricated text messages between him and his gay boyfriend. And, you know, and we don't, and it's just, you know, and they think that we're just stupid. They really do. They just think that we're dumb. And,
Right.
you know, so
Yes.
my thing is do not comply. They want us dead.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you. Judy, do you want to comment at all before you go too? Do you want to comment at all? I know you're busting at the seams. You've got to be. If I know Judy. Judy?
Well, yeah, it's what he's saying. Everything he's saying is true, and of course, you know they've done that and gotten away with it. You know, whether it be Jeff Bradstreet or
Yeah.
Timothy Cunningham or anybody else, it's not that these shootings were psyops. You know, these people were killed, but by who and why? It's the same thing as Adam Lanza. Why is Alex Jones paying for Adam Lanza and his mother? You know, Lyme disease is neuro AIDS, is and always was a G protein 15. You knew that in HIV. You got a neuro component with the eczema. They know what they're doing. So they just keep doing the same script, and we, the people, don't do anything about it. So I'm so blessed, Kirk, that you're saying that. And then they'll try to put it on Trump Kennedy. And, you know, that FBI was a mess that went after me, but I kept filing RICOs, and all of this is going to come out, and you're going to see that there's a lot deeper hole than anybody knows, and I don't know what it is either. But I'm just grateful for you, Dr. Moore and Kirk, because I mean, unless doctors like you did those things, yeah, there was no law, but now those cards. Oh, so you got your vaccine card, so now you got to get your next COVID shot, and they don't have record of any of it, and they're trying to capture us, especially California. It's horrific. They're just revising everything.
Yeah. Kirk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a mess. I mean, it's truly a mess. and they really do. They just, like, like Judy said, it's just like your kids, you let your kids get away with a lie.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and and then the next lie is a little bit bigger, and then it's a little bit bigger, and then they
Mm-hmm.
realize that they can get away with so much more. We've
Right.
been letting our politicians and all of our agencies and everybody else get away with so much for so long that they just have no remorse anymore, and they just think that they're entitled, and they will get away with anything and everything that they do.
I
And
know.
we just have to stand up. We got to push back. We got to start
Mm-hmm.
asking questions. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying that anybody needs to kind of pull out a gun and start shooting. I'm not saying that. I just
Right.
think, because that's kind of what they want us to do.
Oh yeah.
But I
Yeah.
just think you need to stand up, and you need to start asking questions. And,
Mm-hmm.
just like I said, where's the gun? Where's the rifle?
Do you
Where's the
think, yeah.
ballistics? Where's the bullet?
Right.
And yet, with that guy, Jake Scott, like you
Mm-hmm.
just said about him,
right,
Ron Johnson eviscerated him. And and yet why? He just admitted the murder of how many people?
right.
We know
Hundreds.
where those shots went, and he created COVID. Why aren't we holding those people liable?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did you see
exactly.
I guess the Supreme Court of Arizona just today, or no, September 12th. So maybe last
Mm-hmm.
week actually
Mm-hmm.
came out and said that from 2020 through March of 2020 through like November of 22, any cases that were filed against doctors for injuring or hurting their patients can actually go ahead. Um, and they were not protected. It was a 4-3 decision in their state Supreme Court. So hopefully, we'll start seeing some
Mm-hmm.
movement in that direction
Right.
and hold some of these people accountable for, like I said, if Jake Scott's claiming that he had 100 people that died or hundreds of people that died, and it was the most awful experience that he's ever had, then he should be prosecuted for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Because,
and malpractice
Yeah.
insurance,
yeah,
let's run him out of business. It's
yeah,
insurance.
yeah,
And you'll get enough money to file that prosecution.
Right.
Because again, people don't realize, I filed for the murder and martyr of my husband. I filed malpractice, $100 million malpractice
Good.
against the head of public health, who admitted they made a mistake when they kidnapped David Mikovitz. By the way, his name was Nolde, and the hospital literally in front of me murdered him,
yeah.
by starving him to death. By the way, he would not have died.
Oh, that
So
just
that's
Well, I
very
mean, but then you have the other side of it where Grace Shara,
oh
that
yeah.
case for Grace
Mm-hmm.
Shara,
I
the
had
judge
Scott on.
just
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
yeah, I mean, goes right against it, saying that, this is fully in line with what the PrEP Act is,
Mm-hmm.
not even looking at the PrEP Act and not even looking at how
Mm-hmm.
unconstitutional that law is.
Right.
I don't know how these people hang their hat up and go to sleep
I
at
don't
night.
either. So just in closing, do you? Because I'll take calls after this, but just in closing, what do you feel like is coming? Because I know that they're gearing up. They're making shots, right? So I want to get both of your takes. What do you think's coming, Judy? What do you think? What are we going to see with this? Because I don't think they're done.
Oh, well, I think they're done. I think we're going to see React 19 and every one of us rise up in love and encourage, not discourage like
Mm-hmm.
Kirk did. I think they're done. I think we keep doing things like you're doing, Kate.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it out there in a good way,
Mm-hmm.
and just keep revealing. I mean, I I
I
I
hope
pay
so.
only a social media guy to just keep posting it over and over. Show them
Good.
everything all the way back to 1975.
Good. Good. Good.
And our
Good.
book, Ending Plague, is exactly that. If
Yeah.
you read or listen to our book, Ending Plague,
Mm-hmm.
it's a playbook of how we need to stop them
Gosh.
once we realize where the truth lies.
Yeah.
And Obama was the single biggest problem.
Yes.
And
Yes.
they know that, and that's where I will text you
Mm-hmm.
that
Okay.
picture of Hillary there trying to kill me
Okay.
on
Oh
November
my
9th. She
gosh.
really thought I'd die that
Oh
day. It's
my
actually kind of
gosh.
funny.
That is
So,
insane. And the war on cancer with Nixon, there was a reason they suddenly did this war on cancer, and it was after the vaccine program
Well,
came
that
out.
was after the polio vaccine, right?
Yes,
I mean, that
yes.
was after the SV40 and the
When
SV40
they started
promoter. They
telling
knew
everybody. Mm-hmm.
exactly what they were doing. And
Mm-hmm.
Alt Ochsner was the first president of the American Cancer Society, wasn't he?
Mm,
Or whatever. He
right.
established the American Can. I made a mistake of calling it the National Cancer Institute, but it wasn't him. It was actually the American Cancer Society that he established and became the first president of that, because he knew exactly what he was doing in the 40s and 50s with the development of the polio
You
vaccine.
did, yeah.
Um,
Wow.
yeah, look, the
Mm.
um the fraud. I just sent
What's
I
up?
just Jake Scott sent me a message on X because I followed him,
Mm-hmm.
and then he said, "Hey, are you following me because you want to harass me or because you want to really listen to what I had to say? I
Jeez.
really didn't like them closing schools, and I really didn't think that our kids deserve to be in masks. I'm not a Fauci, whatever. I'm not a Fauci pawn or something like
What a
that." I
liar.
wrote like this really long answer to it, calling out all of the same stuff
Mm-hmm.
that I just did earlier.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that that's what we need to do. I was muzzled for so long, and I was keeping quiet and not saying
Mm-hmm.
anything because I still wanted to take care of my patients to the best of my ability. But
Sure.
they're just going to keep coming at us, and we
Right.
need to stand up and we need to push back, and we need to realize that they're just lying to us. Look, the medical schools are owned by pharma. Pharma owns everything, okay? They own the textbooks, they own the medical school
Mm-hmm.
education. They own the investigators, they own
Mm-hmm.
the reviewers, they own the journals.
Right.
They give the
Judy's
journals money
nodding.
on
Yep.
reprints.
Mm-hmm.
They own the media, and then
Mm-hmm.
they own the politicians. And so you've just got this complete monopoly, and these people are not allowed out there to talk about it. And you were probably a victim of that, Kate.
Mm-hmm.
In large measure,
Four
um,
times.
by,
4 times
by
I've been
getting
censored.
right by getting censored and everything else
Oh my
because
gosh.
they have money that
Mm-hmm.
they just it goes around and they own everything. And so we just need to they can't own us, or they're at least they're trying to, and we just
Mm-hmm.
need to push back.
Right.
So
Right.
anyway,
Thank you
that's where
so
we're going.
much. Thanks to both of you. I really appreciate you guys. Really, I do. And
I'm delighted to be able to stay on and listen,
that's
Kirk.
awesome.
I'm so
Well,
grateful.
yeah, thanks for sticking around, Judy. It's good seeing you.
Oh, it's wonderful. Thanks, you guys, so much. All right, I'll see you guys later, and I'll have you guys back too. Thank you so much. So appreciate them. Can I just tell you, like, it's amazing. I look, I'll take callers. I'll take a few callers, and then we'll end today's show. And then I'm out for a week, and my son is getting married. So this has long been in the works. It just comes at a time when the news cycle is insane. So what do you do? Now, I thought it was interesting what Judy said about Cardio Miracle. That was fascinating, and get it. It's on my site, katedalleyradio.com, and take it twice. Take it twice a day. You're going to see a huge difference. Oh my gosh, it's like feeding your body. It really feels good, and I love that. I love her connection to that. It's really cool. And of course, for ivermectin and such, go to allfamilypharmacy.com/Kate and make sure that you're getting rid of parasites, and be doing that every 6 months because they just build up in the body. So I think so many things come from that. But I know that Cardio Miracle has been helping like neuropathy and MS and autoimmune and all kinds of things. And so you guys, we're up against a lot with our health. And so this is a really good time to take control. And I love that they're so outspoken about not only the legalities, like what's happening and in court. That's why I asked Kirk to come back too, is because people just leave these cases alone, and then we don't really learn anything about them. And hardly anyone knew that those documents, those contracts, those smoking gun contracts, were just such a huge thing. And we need to know these things, right? So I'm telling you that there is something to be learned there, and we need to learn it. And we are struggling because we're just not paying attention. And if we had those tools, if we understood what came out of this case and why the government suddenly dismissed it, doesn't that wake a lot of people up? I would think so anyway. So I think that anyway, yes, you can call up now. Sorry, I didn't have it plugged in for you guys to be able to talk on the air, but now you can. So you can give a call real quick, and we'll just do a couple of quick phone calls. But I know. You know what else I miss, you guys? I miss music. Here we go.
A lot of nice girls.
I love rocking out on the show. All right, I'll take callers. Okay.
I'm ready.
Okay. Let me take a callers up, but I got to get some music in there. Woo. I love it. Hi, caller. Welcome to the show. Go right ahead.
Hey, greetings, Kate.
Hi.
One of the things that the average person doesn't realize is the prosecutors all across the country network. So when they find a niche to overcome a defendant's defense,
Mm-hmm.
they share it. And so they're a tag team working against we the people. The problem is that we go out and hire or try to do it ourselves, and we have no assistance. There's no networking, and these defense attorneys. I'm sorry. I've been in missions work and ministry throughout my youth and as an adult, and always when people call, I just go. They don't. This is one of the trade groups. I have friends that are doctors that go to foreign countries. They do surgeries for free for weeks. Attorneys don't. What is the deal?
Yeah.
These people
what is the
need to
deal?
step up. We're in the fight. They need to engage instead of standing there with their hands out.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Thank you. I really appreciate the call. Look, there's just so much to say. Oh my gosh. And boy, Judy's, that was kind of interesting on warp speed, what she said earlier on in the program. That was interesting too. It was kind of fascinating. Another angle, that possibly, I mean, I hadn't heard of that angle. So, warp speed actually enabled a clinical trial that they had evaded for a very long time. Okay. I can take that piece in and run that around my brain for a little while. But because I've given a lot of heat over Operation Warp Speed for sure. I think as far as the news cycle goes too, I wanted to play this for you, this clip. I'll play this clip for you, then I'll take some phone calls. But this I thought was kind of an interesting clip from Charlie Kirk. Okay, let me do this one. All right, here we go. This is Charlie Kirk. I think it was more recent, actually, very, very recent. Here we go.
Hard right government has a mandate. Fact is now Bibi and the Israeli hard right government has a mandate. I gotta be careful the way I say this. They're gonna try to ethnically cleanse Gaza. I mean I don't use that term lightly. Okay, they're talking about basically removing 2.5 million people from there. Okay. And honestly, they have a mandate to go seek justice and revenge. They do. This idea that they need to have a truce or a peace treaty, that's morally crap after you see women and children be burned alive and dragged to the streets. But there are some serious questions here, Patrick. And let me tell you, my pattern recognition over the last 5 years has become pretty sharp. COVID, Maui fires, Epstein. When I see a story and it doesn't click, our guts are usually right. So I've been to Israel many times. The whole country's a fortress. When I first heard this story, I still have the same gut instinct that I did initially. I find this very hard to believe. I've been to that Gaza border. You cannot go 10 feet without running into a 19-year-old with an AR-15 or an automatic machine gun that's an IDF soldier. Right? The whole country is surveilled. And so let me just kind of go through this. We don't talk about Israeli politics very often, and most Americans don't know this. The last 9 months, Israel was on the brink of civil war. It's not an exaggeration. This judicial stuff, there were hundreds of thousands of Israelis taking to the streets because Bibi Netanyahu was basically redefining the Israeli constitution. That's not an exaggeration, right? He said the judicial branch has too much power. There were protests planned this week against Netanyahu, where they anticipated tens of thousands of people to take to the streets. That's all gone, Patrick. Netanyahu now has an emergency government and a mandate to lead. I'm not willing to go so far that saying that Netanyahu knew or there was intelligence here, but I think some questions need to be asked. Was there a stand down order?
Okay. That was an interesting clip, right? Here's a point that I'm not hearing, but I would like to hear. And I'm going to be rather blunt. Okay. A lot of people are perusing these clips and they're looking at the Israel angle, okay? And did he turn on Israel and did the Mossad take him out? And truly, when people say that, the one thing I'm thinking is we would be the ones taking him out for what he's saying about Israel, right? Or what he's disclosing or his concerns. Remember when he said I had to be really careful? And media people are, podcasters are, anybody in media is very careful how they talk about Israel. Israel would not be doing it. We would be doing it. We would be doing it because we would want to protect one of the entities that owns everything. Okay. And that is that government and the people behind the government, more importantly, that are driving the train, so to speak, over there. And so I'm not ever talking about the people, just like the people here in the United States. We don't approve of what our intelligence agencies are doing, but our intelligence agency would be the one that would put a hit out, right, on somebody. And so people jump to Mossad and then give again the deep state this right here, right? That because they're together, okay? And people just don't make that connection in their brain. They still want to think that our CIA and the people that are CIA that are running for office, oh my gosh, why would you ever want to vote for somebody that's in the CIA for office? I don't even know why you would do that personally. I'm perplexed. But anyway, I had to say that because I think people are trying to kind of shove it off on Israel as if it's completely separate. We're totally enmeshed, and that our government would be very busy here trying to protect the narrative of the fact that we still think that the president runs things, and I don't. I do not think the president runs hardly anything, to tell you the truth. It's been so overtaken. So that's probably a big difference between me and others. Are I look at it like they're putting the people on stage that they want us to concentrate on, period. And that we look at those people on stage and we go, oh, you're in charge, you have power. And I think that's why the stories that were coming out were all about like how hard everyone's working and they need a break or they're going to keel over and die, this kind of storyline, because they have to keep implementing this narrative that all the power is with the people they're showcasing, and it's not. It's behind the scenes. So I just wanted to make that little twist of a note, like, stop saying Mossad's going to do it, because it makes zero sense. We're going to do it to protect the powers that be over there, right? Our government, our senators, our congressmen, our presidents all have to get approved in the party structure by them. So people just don't make that connection. Okay, caller, go right ahead.
Hi, Kate. It's good to be with you on the internet.
Oh yeah, hi. How are you?
Kevin.
Hi.
Good.
Hi, Kevin.
I don't know if you remember me.
I do, of course. Go right ahead.
If it's okay, I'd like to change topics a little bit.
Okay.
I want to talk about music. Now, you and I are of the same faith, LDS.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's true, and you don't have to answer this, but do you think it's true that Gene R. Cook actually had a conversation with Mick Jagger on the airplane? Do you remember that story?
Oh, yeah, I do. I think he could have, sure. Why not?
Well, here's what I wonder, though.
Can I fill people in? Can I just fill people in?
Yeah.
Gene R. Cook said that he had a discussion with Mick Jagger. And Mick Jagger, on an airplane, Mick Jagger admitted that really the only reason that he even does music, because the only purpose of music was to get kids to have sex and take drugs, and that was pretty much the purpose. Right?
Yeah, and there were other things, but that's the gist of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so what I've always wondered, whenever I hear a song by the Rolling Stones, I'm not even thinking about sex and drugs. I'm thinking about dancing in a park, not even, the sexual dancing, just regular. So that's the question I would have asked Mick Jagger, if in fact he really said that. And then I just wonder, because it just sounded so outlandish. I'm not saying it's not true, but I just wonder how much of that conversation do you think was hyperbolated? It just sounded a little out there.
No, I actually think that could have happened. I really do. I mean,
really?
I do. Why not? I don't think he would lie about it. And, it's a random thing to talk about in this news cycle right now, but I can appreciate it. I don't think that he would sit and lie about it. I think that that it probably would have happened. Sure. And why not? I think they actually like to gloat about it. The rock stars, I actually think they do. So who knows?
Well, I would have asked. I would love to ask Mick Jagger when I hear your music.
But at the end of the day, even let's say the conversation didn't take place. At the end of the day, you and I both know that was pretty much the gist of the music. It completely changed from orchestra and classical to what we have now, and that in of itself, you can actually look at the results of all of that, and you can see how our society has changed, and truly what they're singing about. So I guess, whether that conversation actually took place, the results are there to prove it anyway. So
Yeah, it's
I don't know.
true.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day.
I just find it interesting.
Yeah.
Jagger didn't
Yeah.
comment on it or
Well, I
anything.
don't think he would have. I mean, no one's going to admit that they talked to somebody on a plane and admitted all of that. He's not going to kill his own career like that and publicly admit it, let the press run with it or whatever. But I just don't think
Yeah, but
Gene R. Cook
everybody
would lie.
knows that anyway. I mean, if you look at his philosophy of life,
Yeah, I mean,
everybody knows.
he's a cad. So I mean, but I can appreciate it. Hey, thank you. I'm glad that you called in. I love random. I love Random Thursday. We'll call it Random Thursday if I do more Thursday shows. And I'm sad that I'm going to be out considerable amount of time for next week. So I apologize. I'll be back next. I'll probably do a show Friday because I'll probably have to play catch up. So I feel bad about that. I'm so sorry. Because with everything going on right now, it's kind of like one of the worst times to leave. And there's a lot of infighting going on right now with talk show hosts. I think Dana was sort of passive aggressively kind of going after Candace. Candace is kind of going after Ben Shapiro. You've got Glenn crying in the middle. You've got like all these different people. They're all doing all these shows about Charlie. And so, yeah. And then, of course, we had the court appearance yesterday of the alleged shooter. And then we also had Frank Turek out there, who is, they say, Charlie's mentor. And he did a video where he was saying, I'm the guy in the white hat. I'm the guy that everybody thought was doing hand signals, but I just had a phone. I just had a phone because I was on FaceTime with my wife and my one of his kids or two of his kids. And so I was behind him shooting this video. And yeah, the video of Frank Turek talking about it, there wasn't, even though he said that Charlie was like his fourth son or whatever, there wasn't a lot of emotion there. It was a weird video. I mean, I have to say I was kind of like, at the end, because of course, Charlie had said something about security, and Frank Turek, Dr. Turek said, no, we're good. And then, of course, he's standing behind him with a phone. Well, wouldn't you, if Charlie's concerned about security, wouldn't you be kind of looking around at security? I mean, you'd be on your phone, I guess. So that was kind of an odd thing, to tell you the truth. I was just like, And just kind of the whole way he was talking about it. Not that I think everyone is going to cry like a baby when they're talking, but it just seemed like it was completely the other way. Like he just hardly had an emotion about it. So that's why I'm sharing that. So you can do with that what you want, but and maybe he was being sincere. I don't know. So I never know somebody's intent, but in any case, when the alleged shooter, right, comes into the, they were doing all kinds of charges. Now, one thing I want you guys to be aware of is I'm always looking at the charges because they always contrive charges. There's always charges that they come up with, and one of them was you have an enhanced priority to kill a certain person. And I was thinking, that's a really odd, everybody that usually goes after somebody is it's an enhanced thing, but because Charlie is a celebrity, I guess, and because they were trying to say because it's political, now it's an enhanced charge on top of the other charges. Now, if he truly did it, which I don't think he did, you want to throw the book at him, but we ought to know what's in the book, guys, because what's in the book affects all of us, and that's why I'm bringing it up. It has nothing really to do with the Charlie Kirk case. It has everything to do with what does the government do when they're trying to pile on the charges. I mean, pile on. And the government's really good at burying you in charges, right? We were just talking to Dr. Kirk Moore about that, but I did notice that in this trial or in this first appearance by the alleged shooter was that it was, I mean, the charges were like, charge somebody with aggravated murder, but then there was like, and this, and this, and this. And then I'm always listening to the and this because I want to know what they're being able to get away with as far as inventing more things inside of a legal system, which could affect any one of us. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there because I just thought it was noteworthy. But if I say that, then everyone goes, you don't want to throw the book at him? You want him off? No, if he truly did it, no, I don't want him off. But we still need to listen. We still need to listen at what's going on. That's why I asked Kirk to come back, is because I said, people don't understand what goes on in that courtroom is very, very important. So to us right now and what our lives look like. So when they showcase it on the national stage, we should be paying attention. Hi, caller. Welcome to the show. Go right ahead.
Hey there, Kate.
Hi.
Yeah. Hi. It reminds me of Animal Farm, that line from Animal Farm, like all animals are equal, but pigs are more equal than others.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what they're trying to do, like rules for thee, but not for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because in the future, if we even try to revolt against these tyrannical leaders, then they'll just get us on thought crime and throw the book at us. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you for that. Really appreciate you. Thank you. Yeah, thought crime. Yeah. Enhanced target. I'm like, I mean, I don't even know what they could come up with next on charges because people get accused of these things too. They usually bring them out in these very, very like national, you kind of learn about these things on the national stage when they bring them out. And, I don't think people realize how far they're willing to go to give themselves some sort of new law against that they can put on people, right, and just pile on. But yeah, he showed up, I think, in a suicide vest. I think he's been in the a mental ward or what have you. So anyway, I just wanted to just comment about that and play that clip for you about Charlie talking about Israel. I thought that was kind of an interesting piece. And then, of course, people coming out and talking about the fact that they're pretty sure that just given what we saw, that the shot had to have come from the right side behind, that there was something that as that shot came in. So I just thought I would share that with you. A lot of people speculating, talking about that. And it makes more sense than what their shooter story is. So, and can people be made to think that they've actually done something they haven't done? Yeah. Yeah, they can, actually. CIA is really good at it. Deep State's really good at it. And, so the CIA is like the henchmen. You got naval intelligence, you got all kinds of intelligence, and they're like the henchmen for the deep state. You know what I mean? It's bizarre. And I just wanted to kind of add that into the conversation too as I'm looking at all this. But I will be out next week and appreciate you, of course, listening in. And that was really fascinating with Judy, and I'll have to mull those things around. And then, of course, Kirk. That was really fascinating with Kirk too. So interesting. All right. Be faithful, be fearless. And I'll lose a week, but I'll be back. I'll probably do a show next Friday just to make sure I can address the news cycle and whatnot. So I know I'll have missed a lot. I'll put it that way. You guys have a wonderful week. All right. See you guys later. KateDalleyRadio.com. Get the ebooks and visit the sponsors that keep me doing this. Okay. Really appreciate that. All right. Thanks, you guys. And I'll hit the music again. Why not? There you go. See? Thanks, you guys.